You're listening to the Broken Havoc podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. What's up, everybody? It is Broken Havoc here on the Broken Havoc podcast, here to review Monday Night Raw from April 4th, 2022. Of course, it is the Raw after WrestleMania, the biggest Raw of the year, but wasn't really the biggest Raw of the year. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts right here on the podcast. Overall thoughts, though, to be quite honest with you, a part of the show did not really feel like it was the Raw after WrestleMania. I'm being 100% honest with you. Of course, we had Cody Rhodes. He had his first promo segment in the WWE, finally back from the WWE, of course, after his amazing 5-star classic with Seth Rollins at WrestleMania Night 1. But I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on this entire episode of Raw right here on the Broken Havoc podcast. But before I get on with the review, make sure to like and subscribe to the Broken Havoc podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the Broken Havoc podcast is now available on audio platforms, that being Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. If you guys want to listen to the Broken Havoc podcast in audio format, they're all available on these audio formats that are listed. All right, we're going to be talking about Monday Night Raw. Overall, was this show a show that really delivered as WWE promised? To be quite honest with you, I'm going to be honest, not really. And this was a show that I was actually really excited for, and it's pretty rare for me to say that, especially nowadays, that I'm actually really excited, or I was really excited for an episode of Raw. Of course, WrestleMania happened this past weekend, and honestly, I thought WrestleMania this year was awesome. I really enjoyed what I watched at WrestleMania. I mean, not only from the moments that we had, of course, with Steve Austin, Cody Rhodes, Pat McAfee, but really the spectacle of it all. And really, that is the beauty of WrestleMania. It's really all about the spectacle. And honestly, though, usually when it comes to Raw after WrestleManias, the crowd is absolutely rampant. But to be quite honest, I mean, the crowd on this show just felt like a normal WWE Raw crowd. Like, it didn't really feel like a WrestleMania after WrestleMania crowd, because usually whenever it's a Raw after WrestleMania, the crowd is absolutely going apeshit. Like, I can clearly remember WrestleMania 29, the Raw after WrestleMania 29, even though everybody hated the fact that John Cena beat The Rock because of the fact that it was damn too predictable. The entire crowd at the Izod Center was absolutely, like, they were completely going crazy. Like, the entire crowd was just going crazy. They were chanting the most randomest things you could possibly imagine. They were chanting things like JBL. They were doing the freaking wave. They were doing all that craziness. The Raw after WrestleMania 31, that was a crazy ass episode of Raw, mainly because of the fact that Brock Lesnar destroyed everybody, and I literally mean everybody. But really, the only thing of importance on this episode of Raw were two things, and one of them delivered, and that being Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. And Cody Rhodes was the one that kicked off the show, and Roman Reigns cut a promo at the end of the show, basically telling us, you'll see my plans this Friday on SmackDown. So basically, Roman Reigns, even though he's going to be on Raw every week, on his first Raw, as the double champion, I mean, like, the first thing he says is, yeah, I beat Brock Lesnar, and you're going to have to find out my true intentions on SmackDown. I mean, like, really, we waited 3 hours for that. But overall, really, a lot of the stuff that we saw on this show was your typical WWE Raw garbage. That's what we really got on the show. Cody Rhodes' segment, on the other hand, though, was a flat-out amazing. And I mean that to the bottom of my heart, man. His promo that he cut on Raw felt like a promo that he cut on AEW Dynamite. And I genuinely believe that, mainly because of the fact that one of the things I loved about Cody Rhodes' return to the WWE is the fact that WWE did not change anything about Cody Rhodes' appearance, his look, his in-ring style. They changed absolutely nothing. They basically paid him $4 million to get the AEW version of Cody Rhodes, that being the American Nightmare. And overall, I mean, that was a smart business move to do, because if they had changed anything when it comes to Cody Rhodes, honestly, it would have been deemed a failure. And, it's safe to say that honestly, I would love for Cody Rhodes to be the one to dethrone Roman Reigns, and I'll talk about that later on this Raw review. But we're gonna be starting off with Cody Rhodes, of course. Cody Rhodes kicks off Monday Night Raw, and he gets a standing ovation from the crowd. He got a standing ovation from the crowd, and the very first thing he says was, "So, what do you guys want to talk about?" If you guys don't recall, why that is really important is because his last promo segment that he cut on AEW Dynamite, of course, it was the week before the fantastic ladder match that he had with Sammy Guevara. The very first thing that he said was, "So, what do you guys want to talk about?" Of course, that was during the time where he was declared a free agent, and we didn't even know if he was going to be re-signing with AEW. A lot of people, including myself, thought he was going to be re-signing with the company, but no, that did not end up being true. Of course, he is currently now signed with World Wrestling Entertainment. His promo was absolutely fantastic, and I wrote a summary on what he basically said, but I'm not gonna lie, I kind of felt like I kind of copied and pasted everything, mainly because of the fact that this promo is too damn good. But he talks about how it's been 47 days since the abrupt news that he was a free agent. He chose to remain silent. He heard the stories, but all those stories were all nonsense. Everybody thought the decision was difficult for him to return, but it was not. It was actually really simple. And one key statement that he stated that was really kind of I don't want to say a nod to Stardust, but like that was actually, I love how he implemented the Stardust name into this. He said, "The star that left him in the dust." And he says, "The man standing here now signed a multi-year agreement with World Wrestling Entertainment." And then we get a bunch of "You deserve it" chants. So we get a standing ovation from the crowd, which was awesome. And then he says that there was a glimmer of doubt the moment he rose up in front of 70,000 fans at WrestleMania. He defeated one of the best superstar wrestlers on the planet in Seth Rollins. The doubt was eradicated. He is an avid reader and found a quote, and the quote stated, "A man often finds his destiny on the path he takes to avoid it." It was humor. And then, he says that if we humor him, we look at the Titantron. And on the Titantron, it shows a picture of Dusty Rhodes in Madison Square Garden holding the WWF Championship back in 1977. And says that it's so simple to say that is his father. Yes, he is a legend, a son of a plumber, a common man. Of course, that is the theme song of The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, baby. And says that he was his hero. The photo was taken in 1977 at Madison Square Garden, and that very photo sees him holding the championship belt, a belt that Hulk Hogan would get his hands on. Now, granted, when he stated Hulk Hogan's name, they got a bunch of boos from the crowd. Of course, a lot of people nowadays do not like Hulk Hogan, and, that's justified, of course. I remember when I was at WrestleMania last year, and when Hulk Hogan came out with Titus and O'Neil, oh my God, the entire crowd at Raymond James Stadium absolutely booed the crap out of Hulk Hogan. But back to the promo. He says that, a title that Hulk Hogan would get his hands on, a title that The Undertaker would get his hands on, HBK, Shawn Michaels would get his hands on, and oh yeah. And he turns to the camera and says, Triple H as well. And many other greats. This very photo was in the mantle of his parents' bedroom until his last day. And then he starts to get emotional. He says that as he got hip in the industry, he worked up a little courage and asked him that he didn't know that he was champion like Hulk Hogan. And he looked at him with the same eyes that Liberty has, very stern and very politely, and explained to him the champion's advantage. He won the match via countout, which meant that he was not leaving with the championship belt. He says that he was 8 years old, and he already knew what he was going to do. Right then and there, he knew what he was going to do, and he needed to do what he was going to do. He was going to win the championship belt right and place it into the hand of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and tell him that nobody can take it away from him now. There are many people who followed his journey, and some who haven't, and said that, the dream died. It died right in front of him. The opportunity passed, and then he turned to the camera again, or did it? Then he stated, yes, he cannot physically put that championship belt in the hands of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, but he can certainly put it around the waist of the American Nightmare. And then we get a bunch of "you can do it" chants, and says that with that in mind, the silence is broken, and he made it clear that he stands ready and finally ready, and he's going to do it, And he gives the distinction that his family has long been denied and will do it for the people, for him, for his family, and he's going to do it for the American dream, Dusty Rhodes. And then his promo segment ends. But then what happens? Seth Rollins comes out. And we got the crowd just singing his theme song. And this was actually like this in the beginning of this entire segment, the crowd is actually really excited. But it was really during the middle of the show where the crowd was just kind of dead, in my opinion. But Seth Rollins comes out, and then both face off. Cody throws the microphone behind him and offers a handshake, and then both shake hands. And then what happens? Cody's music plays, and the segment ends. What are my thoughts on this segment? Overall, this was a fantastic opening segment, and it was a fantastic promo by the one and only Cody Rhodes to kick off the Raw after WrestleMania. It was fantastic. I absolutely loved what I saw. I felt like I was watching AEW Dynamite when Cody Rhodes was cutting this promo, and I mean that wholeheartedly. Now, I understand Monday Night Raw is nowhere near, in my opinion, at the level of goodness, in my opinion, as Dynamite is. But overall, whenever you think of Cody Rhodes cutting a promo, you think of him cutting a promo on AEW television. And Cody Rhodes, throughout, when he was on AEW television, he has cut really awesome-ass promos. Really awesome promos. Like, I remember his promo in the build-up for his match against Jericho at Full Gear a couple of years ago. That was fantastic as well. But overall, what does this lead to? What does this lead to? Overall, man, like, a lot of people are saying this, and I'm 100% agreement with this. Cody Rhodes should be the guy to dethrone Roman Reigns. And yes, I mean that. Why is that the case? Why should Cody Rhodes be the one to dethrone Roman Reigns? Well, I'm going to ask you, the viewer, this question right here. Is there anybody else on the roster that is at the level of a Roman Reigns? The simple answer is no, there really isn't. Finn Balor's not on that level. I wish he was, but he's not. Big E's not on that level. Kofi Kingston is not on that level. Drew McIntyre is certainly not on that level of a Roman Reigns. Cody Rhodes is a guy that managed to bet on himself and up his value going to the WWE. And his value was instantly got higher right after that match against Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. Not even his match against Seth Rollins, even before the match against Seth Rollins. His entrance alone at WrestleMania literally upped his value. It literally did. And it makes total sense for him to be the guy to dethrone Roman Reigns, in my opinion. Because keep in mind, Cody Rhodes never won the WWE Championship. He never won, the AEW World Championship, which is actually really shocking to think. He won the NWA title, and he was really emotional about that, but he never got to hold the WWE Championship. And to me, I feel like it's the perfect story, and you can definitely build long-term for next year's WrestleMania. A lot of people are saying that, the match for Roman Reigns at next year's Mania is going to be The Rock versus Roman Reigns. But to be quite honest with you, is The Rock possibly going to wrestle at WrestleMania next year? We do not know. I mean, The Rock has a really strict schedule. But the perfect replacement can definitely be Cody Rhodes, 100%. Because the story is there. Not only that, there are many different aspects that you can do with this. You can do a slow tease and a slow build, maybe starting in the summer. Like, have Cody Rhodes and Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns literally interact in the beginning of the summer. And then go on from there. Like, I tweeted this out, man. Like, WWE, since they now have Cody Rhodes, this is the perfect opportunity to utilize Survivor Series the way Survivor Series should be. And that is not via 6-man tag team match, or that is not via Raw versus SmackDown. Use War Games. Now, you're probably going to tell me, but Broken Havoc, which Ricky's my real name. But, don't they got War Games for NXT? Honestly, to me now, especially with the current formula of NXT, I don't think I feel like this current incarnation of NXT does not deserve War Games. That's just my opinion. I feel like the main roster should implement War Games, because keep in mind, Cody Rhodes was supposed to be in the first Blood and Guts match a couple of years ago. But of course, he couldn't, the match did not happen for obvious reason. It was not Cody Rhodes' fault. It was not AEW's fault. It was nobody's fault. It was the pandemic that halted everything. And one of the perfect ways that he can honor his father, of course, his father was the one that created the War Games concept. If they implement War Games at Survivor Series, that's one of my ideas. And you can have like Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes interact there. And then, have after that, Cody Rhodes, like, would win the Royal Rumble or something like that. Do something, man. Like, Cody Rhodes can instantly be your Sting to your Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And I don't necessarily mean Sting by, like, not wrestling a full year, because 100% Cody Rhodes is going to be wrestling. But I'm talking about in a way, he should be, Cody Rhodes should be the Sting of Roman Reigns' Hollywood Hogan, in which this is the guy to dethrone the monster, the mega heel, that being Roman Reigns. Because WWE has nobody else. They have nobody else. So, honestly, the amount of matches that Cody Rhodes is possibly going to have, the possibilities are endless now. We just have to wait and see what WWE is going to do with Cody Rhodes. But after this promo, guarantee you, I definitely do believe Cody Rhodes is 100% going to win the WWE Championship. It just makes sense. It makes sense, and I'm 100% excited for it. And this is another thing I want to get off my chest. You have a lot of these AEW neckbeard drones. Yes, I said it straight up, and this is coming from somebody that supports AEW through and through. But Jesus Christ, that their diehard fan base is one of the worst. And look, the E-drones are crap. Like, E-drones are terrible, and AEW neckbeard drones are horrible. Trust me. Both equally are terrible. I love both companies, right? But these AEW neckbeard drones, like, legit, like, they love to, like, I love the fact that they're constantly shitting on Cody Rhodes, giving him shit for joining WWE. But at the end of the day, I'm like, weren't you guys the same people that started to turn on him? I don't know about me, but I was, I laughed when he started to get boos. But at the same time, like, I still liked Cody Rhodes. Like, these people, like, immediately turned on Cody Rhodes. Not only that, like, I love the fact that, they constantly support Cody Rhodes when he was in AEW. But, like, when he joins the WWE, he's instantly a traitor and they hate him. Like, why can't you just, like, support him? Like, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And honestly, I respect Cody Rhodes for going to the WWE. You want to know why? It's because he bet on himself. He knew that there was a limit in AEW, especially for him, especially after they brought in CM Punk, Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson. They weren't going to focus a lot on Cody Rhodes as much anymore. And he really set himself into a corner when he added that stipulation that he couldn't challenge for the AEW World Championship again. But, he bet on himself, and that's one thing that I respect Cody Rhodes about. He bet on himself when he left the WWE, and he bet on himself when he left AEW. It's the same exact thing. And he's going to be 100% a success in the WWE. We'll just have to wait and see what WWE does with Cody Rhodes, which I definitely do see they're not going to mess up on, because they're paying $4 million for the American Nightmare. And if they do not succeed, I don't know what the hell are they good at. But 100% Cody Rhodes is slated. I don't want to say slated, but 100% he is on the road to the WWE Championship. And, bro, the amount of matches that Cody Rhodes is possibly going to have is going to be insane. You got guys like Seth Rollins, AJ Styles, Edge, Damian Priest, Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens. I mean, the possibilities are endless. This guy is going to be a huge star. All right. We got The Miz versus Dominic. Why? It makes no sense. But the match ended really short. Dominic is in control. We got a Hurricane Rana by Dominic. But Miz catches Dominic, and he tries to go for a skull-crushing finale. But after that, he hits it, and we got a cover by Miz, and he wins the match. So he beats Dominic clean in the center of the ring, which to me makes no sense. I mean, it makes Dominic look really inferior if you really look at it. But what happens after the match? Veer Mahaan, yes, Veer Mahaan finally comes to Raw after how many months? I mean, like, they've been airing video packages of Veer Mahaan since October. Right after the draft, they've been airing video packages of Veer Mahaan. So, like, he finally makes his debut, and he got a pop. Was it like a huge loud pop? No, but he did get a pop. But he came out, and Miz, of course, being the heelish Miz that he is, he runs away. But Ray goes after Veer, but we get a clothesline, and a crazy-ass clothesline by Veer on Ray, and then he hits a side slam. And then he targets Dominic and then applies a clutch. And then Dominic taps out, but there's no official referee because this is not a match. And the referees had to go and stop Veer. So overall, Veer is finally on Raw. Is he going to make an impact? We'll have to wait and see. We got a championship contenders match, which I hate that name, by the way. Championship contenders match. Just call it a number one contendership match. Like, it makes no sense. But we got Sasha Banks and Naomi, of course, the new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, taking on Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. Overall, the match was pretty fine. It was pretty good for what it was. I just don't like the fact that we got Sasha Banks and Naomi wrestling Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. And if Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan win, then they get a title shot. I mean, I never understood those types of stipulations. If not, you could have easily had, somebody like another tag team, like maybe Natalya and Shayna Baszler. Who knows? But to me, it makes no sense for the champions to be in a number one contendership match if they're the champions. You know what I'm saying? And AEW did the same thing with Britt Baker and Riho. Like, I'm like, why is Riho wrestling Britt Baker in order for her to get a championship title match? I mean, to me, it makes no sense. But both companies, in my opinion, are guilty of this stuff. I don't know why they do that type of booking, but it just makes no sense to me. But Sasha goes for the knee of Liv Morgan. We get a Hurricane Rana by Liv on Banks. We get a Meteora in the corner. But actually, no. The other way around. We get a Hurricane Rana by Banks on Liv Morgan, and then she hits the Meteora on Liv Morgan. Then after that, she drives a kick in the corner, by that being Sasha. Sasha then goes to the top, and then she hits the Meteor on Liv from the top. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a roll-up by Liv Morgan twice on Sasha Banks, but they're all near falls. Liv then hits an Enziguri. Rhea makes the tab. We get a double team by Liv and Rhea Ripley. We get a cover by Liv and a near fall. But then Naomi makes the tag, and then she takes out Rhea on the outside. Then both Sasha Banks and Naomi plant Liv Morgan to the mat. We get a cover, and Naomi and Sasha Banks win the match. After the match, what happens? Rhea Ripley, it looked like, they were both going to, regroup. But what happens? Rhea Ripley leaves Liv Morgan dead center in the ring. Now, granted, this is not an official heel turn. Like, Rhea Ripley just instantly left. She just left the ring and just went up to Gorilla. Now, where does this lead to? There are many different scenarios. A lot of people are saying she could possibly be one of the members of Edge's new faction, which I do not mind whatsoever. I think a female, presence, like a female member of Edge's new factions, in my opinion, is actually a pretty good idea. Because really, be honest with yourself, the whole goal of Edge's faction is to get over a lot of people. Get over the certain people that are in the group, that being guys like Damian Priest. Because 100% that is set for that whole faction is built for Damian Priest to go to main event status. 100%. But Rhea Ripley is not a bad option. In my opinion, I definitely do see Rhea Ripley being a part of the faction. A lot of people are saying Shotzi Blackheart, but we'll have to wait and see. It's either one of those two women. But, a lot of people are saying maybe next week the next member is going to be revealed. But we'll see. We get Kevin Owens, a Kevin Owens segment. Kevin Owens talks about the match with Steve Austin and says that he thinks that he underestimated, I should say, Steve, because Austin is still great, and you have to be great in order to beat the greatest, that being Kevin Owens. He says that when he tricked Steve in having his first match in 19 years, he thinks that he tricked himself too, because he went into that match with a pretty bad back injury. It says that his loss to Austin should be removed from the record books. First off, I don't even know that there is any record books, mainly because of the fact that wins and losses do not even matter. But he says that it should be removed from the record books, mainly because he was not wrestling at 100%. Then, who comes out? This guy named Ezekiel. But no, it's freaking Elias, but with he completely shaved his beard, so you don't even recognize him. But it's 100% Elias, and I'm like, did these people really repackage Elias into Ezekiel? And as soon as I heard the whole Ezekiel thing, because keep in mind, I missed the first hour, and I tuned in at the second hour, mainly because of the fact that I had class during the first hour. Well, I should say I left class and I was on my way back home, I should say. But honestly, I mean, like, to me, as soon as they named him Ezekiel and I found out about that, I was like, what the hell is this, Ezekiel Jackson? There will be no stopping. But whatever. But Kevin Owens, the funniest thing about this is Kevin Owens immediately questioned this. And he says that his name is Ezekiel. And Kevin Owens says, what? And he basically recognizes him and says that he is Elias. And then Ezekiel then states that he is Elias's younger brother. KO then wants him to stop lying and stop the BS, and says that Ezekiel then states that he must hate himself, that being Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens says that he never liked him, and he does not like him even more, and he's about to have 10 seconds to leave this ring. And then he counts from 10 to 1, but what happens? Ezekiel doesn't leave, but then Kevin Owens leaves, mainly because of the fact that he just does not want to deal with stupidity. So, overall thoughts, that was actually pretty entertaining. Kevin Owens is one of the most entertaining people in the WWE right now, even to this day. I mean, like, the guy, every time when he cuts a promo, like, that one promo I instantly remember. I remember when everybody was shitting on Dolph Ziggler over that, those It Should Have Been Me promos. And I remember that one time where on SmackDown where Dolph Ziggler came out and he was talking about it should have been him, and then Kevin Owens immediately dragged his ass verbally, like in a bad way. He says like, just get over it. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. But overall, I mean, like, I don't know why you would repackage Elias into Ezekiel. To me, it makes absolutely no sense. Mainly because of the fact that not Ezekiel. Oh my God, I'm getting confused right now. But mainly because of the fact that Elias was so over with the crowd. Like, to me, it just makes no sense for them to change his name. But it is what it is. We get a segment with Bianca Belair. She wants to thank the fans for never giving up on her. She now stands with the title again. And she takes off her glasses and shows that nasty bruise that she took from a kick by Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. She says she stands with one eye, but she thanks Becky for that. She will never take it for granted where she is at because she knows it can be easily taken away from her. And that hurts. She went from, she went through hell at WrestleMania, and WrestleMania proved that she tried to take everything from her. Even with one eye, she's still standing in front of y'all as the Raw Women's Champion. She overcame that, and the fans deserve a better champion. She's going to be the best champion that she could be. She knows how hard it is to be at the top, but also stay at the top. No woman is prepared to take this title away from her. She is built differently, and she is better than everybody else. Now that Becky doesn't have to defend this title, she can find who she really is, and she already knows, that being Bianca herself, that she is the strongest, the fastest, the roughest, the toughest, the EST of WWE. Overall thoughts on this promo segment by Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair had a fantastic match against Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. If you were to compare both women's matches, that being Ronda versus Charlotte or Bianca versus Becky, overall, I would immediately take Bianca versus Becky, mainly because of the fact that the match just flowed much better. I mean, I enjoyed Ronda and Charlotte for what it was, but the build was just absolute garbage. But overall, I mean, this was your typical babyface promo by Bianca Belair, and overall, I definitely enjoyed what I saw. All right, so we got Braun Breaker versus Dolph Ziggler for the NXT Championship. Yes, we got an NXT Championship match on Raw. Braun takes Ziggler to the corner. We get a right hand by Braun, and then he sends Dolph to the corner and hits a belly-to-belly suplex. Ziggler then goes after Braun, but then we get a neck breaker by Dolph. Then we get an elbow drop by Dolph. We get a cover by Dolph and a near fall. Dolph then goes for the kick. Braun then goes for an immediate spinebuster, and I will say that was a really nice-looking ass spinebuster. And then Braun slingshots Dolph. Braun at this point is in control. He goes to the top, that being Dolph Ziggler. Braun is also at the top, but then Braun gets taken to the ring post on the top. And then Dolph hits the drop kick, taking Braun to the outside. Once we're back from break, we get a side headlock by Dolph Ziggler. Braun then runs into a drop kick. We get a cover by Dolph and a near fall. Then we get a powerbomb by Braun on Dolph. Then both exchange shots. We get a shoulder tackle by Braun Breaker. And then we get a belly-to-belly suplex by Braun. We get a clothesline by Braun on Dolph. Then Rude tries to make the distraction, but then we get a roll-up by Dolph and we get a near fall. Breaker then goes for a somersault, taking out Robert Roode on the outside. We get a running boot by Ziggler, and then Dolph hits the Famouser. We get a cover by Dolph and a near fall. And then Braun picks up Dolph, but then Dolph escapes when he gouges the eyes of Braun Breaker after that. We get a cover by Dolph and a near fall. Then Dolph runs into a spear by Braun. Braun then picks up Dolph and hits the running power slam. We get a cover. And Braun Breaker is your new NXT champion. He is now a two-time NXT champion. Overall, this was a pretty good match on Raw. I definitely enjoyed what I watched. I mean, first off, I never understood why they put the NXT championship on Dolph Ziggler. To me, it absolutely made no sense. I feel like one of the reasons why they're bringing in, a lot of these main roster guys to NXT is because of the fact that their ratings are dropping. And yes, their ratings are dropping. And don't even compare the NXT numbers to the Rampage numbers, mainly because of the fact that Dynamite was the show that beat NXT on a consistent basis. But still, I mean, like, overall, it was the right decision for Braun Breaker to win the NXT championship. Does this mean will I watch NXT? No, I'm still not going to watch NXT, mainly because of the fact that, to me, NXT is just not really my taste, my real taste in wrestling. Like, to me, like, NXT is just, to me, I feel like NXT is a joke now. I don't like NXT. I just don't watch it. I just don't. Rhea Ripley is backstage with Liv Morgan, and then Rhea basically told Liv Morgan that she got them a Raw Women's Championship or Raw Tag Team Championship match next week. Women's Tag Team Championship match next week, and then both are basically friends again, which definitely 100% is definitely teasing Rhea Ripley to turn heel the next week. We get Queen Zelina and Carmella. Basically, what happens is both argue, mainly because of the fact that they lost the women's tag team championships at WrestleMania. Zelina then says that Corey is a fool for marrying a girl like Carmella, and Zelina calls him a very handsome man. And then Carmella gets pissed, and then she says that, she can be her flower girl, and then Zelina attacks her, and then a brawl breaks loose. Do I care? No. In our next match of the evening, we got RK Bro and Finn Balor versus the Usos and Austin Theory. Of course, the Usos retained the SmackDown Tag Team Championships at WrestleMania in a not really that good opening match for WrestleMania, but Randy Orton and Riddle had a fantastic opening match on night 2 of WrestleMania, in which they did retain the Raw Tag Team Championships. And honestly, it was the right decision for RK Bro to retain the championships at WrestleMania, mainly because of the fact that, they're so freaking over with the crowd. Like, the crowd absolutely loves RK Bro, and rightfully so. The tag team is really entertaining. But we're going to be getting through with the match. The match starts. Finn Balor and Jimmy Starr both lock up. Balor is in control. We get a shoulder tackle by Balor. We get a couple of stomps by Balor. Jimmy then goes for a sunset flip. We get a shotgun dropkick by Finn. Riddle then tags in. We get a waistlock takedown by Riddle. Then Jay tags in. We get a running forearm. Then after that, Dustin goes for the stomp. We get a cover and a near fall. At this point, Austin is making the distraction with the 7. After that, Austin gets distracted with the 7 Nation Army chant, which was, of course, the chant that Pat McAfee had at WrestleMania. We get a running kick by Riddle onto the apron, but then Austin slides Riddle from the apron onto the floor. Once we're back from break, Jay is in control over on Riddle. We got a right hand by Riddle, but Jay drops Riddle to the mat. We get a cover into near fall. Riddle then hits a running kick. We get the hot tag being made. Then after that, Randy goes after Jimmy. We get a power slam, and then he takes Jimmy to the middle rope. Then he proceeds to hit the middle rope DDT, the all-famous middle rope DDT by Randy Orton. But then Austin hits the rolling shotgun dropkick, but then Finn tags in. He misses the coup de grace from the top, but then Austin picks up Balor for the ATL, but then Balor drops Austin to the mat. We get an RKO by Randy, and then we get a super kick by Jay, and then we get a super kick by Riddle. And then after that, Balor goes for a sling blade, but then Austin comes in and hits the ATL. And we get a cover, and the Usos and Theory retain. Or I shouldn't say retain, they win the match. Overall, oh my God, I'm so sorry, guys. Like, I am extremely tired, man. I don't know why. But overall, this is a pretty good match. I enjoyed it for what it was. The Usos, of course, are not going to be losing the SmackDown Tag Team Championships anytime soon. Austin Theory, I mean, I feel like the guy can get over with the crowd. But to be quite honest, you guys really need to change his gimmick, honestly. I feel like that is like the wrong gimmick for Austin Theory. All right. After that, we got Edge. Well, I shouldn't say... Yeah, Edge. We got an Edge segment. And he cut a fantastic promo. He cut a really good promo on AJ Styles. He talks about how he is an honest man, and he talks about how AJ Styles would face his Judgment Day, and he did. He didn't expect Damian Priest to show up, though. Then after that, he talks about how for AJ and all of us, thinking is hard. But for too long, Priest fought himself and tried to be a standing role model for their sheep. And the crowd then all of a sudden chants, "We are sheep," which is hilarious. Then demands that we all rise. He said, "All rise for the man who respects his message, the man who will be the punishment for the guilty." And then all of a sudden, that person, that being Damian Priest. Damian Priest then comes out. Both proceed to shake hands, and Edge asks what his message that caused him to take his career back at Mania. Priest says that it was going to be saying how much it meant to him for a long time, but he wasn't leading into WrestleMania. Then we get a bunch of "we don't care" chants, and there was a time that would bother him. He tried to please everybody except for himself, but that all changed. And then after that, we got "we are losers" chants. It says that he knows that he was speaking to AJ. His message felt like he was speaking to him. That is why it was so easy to make the decision to pledge loyalty to him. Then Edge says that it was the best decision that he has ever made in his life. Says that, the same night people turned on the people was the same night that Priest got his control back. Then after that, he knows that AJ is going to keep coming. He got the pit bull. He has to realize that his best option is to fight, and he has to think of his family and children. But then what happens? AJ Styles comes out. Priest goes for the attack, but then Styles takes him over the barricade. Then he proceeds to attack Edge. He sends him shoulder first to the ring post, but then AJ grabs 2 chairs. He wants to set up the concerto shot, but that is not the case. Edge immediately spears AJ, and then Edge is about to spear. He sets up the concerto, but then all the referees come in and they leave. So overall, there was a brawl that broke loose in the end. To be quite honest, I definitely enjoyed this segment. Edge is by far going to be one of the best things on Raw. And sign me up. I do not care what anybody says. Edge should be the WWE champion, mainly because, man, that new faction is starting to look gold. And if you really want to solidify this new faction, 100% put the belt on Edge and have him put over guys on the current roster that are young talent. All right, we got the Street Profits versus Alpha Academy. Why makes no sense. The Alpha Academy attack the Profits before the match even starts, but then Adam Pearce comes out and he makes it a Texas Tornado tag team match. And then a brawl breaks loose. Ford then takes Gable to the outside. Ford goes for a somersault on the outside over the ring post. Again, Montez Ford is one of the best in-ring performers right now. We get a double suplex on Gable by the Street Profits. We get a cover and a near fall. Dawkins then goes for a bunch of lefts and rights. We get a German suplex counters by Ford. Then after that, Gable hits a German suplex on Ford. We get a cover and a near fall. Then Otis works on Ford. We get a spine buster by Dawkins. We get repeated rights on Gable by Dawkins, but then Otis takes him out. Otis then goes for the splash. We get a cover by Gable and a near fall. Once we're back from commercial break, we get a double suplex by the Street Profits. Then after that, Gable goes for a moonsault on Dawkins. We get a splash. Then we get a cover and both near falls. Otis then proceeds to grab the table. Both proceed to set up the table, but then Dawkins is on the table. Gable then takes out Ford, but then Dawkins takes out Otis from the top to the outside. Then Dawkins pounces Otis onto the steel steps. Ford is on the top, but Gable interferes. Gable then goes to the top and then wants to go for the superplex. We get a chop by Ford. Gable then lands on his feet, but then Dawkins hits a right and hits a right on Gable, taking him to the table. Then the Ford hits a frog splash, a beautiful frog splash that being, and we get a cover by Ford and a near fall, or I should say, and wins the match. Overall thoughts on this match, it was a pretty good match for what it was, to be quite honest with you. I didn't mind, mainly because of the fact that they were wrestling at WrestleMania, so honestly, what is the point? And if I'm getting a little low, I'm literally getting sleepy. I do not know why. But overall, it was a pretty fun little match between the Street Profits and Alpha Academy. Alpha Academy is definitely growing on me, in my opinion. All right. The Universal Champion, Roman Reigns, and the Bloodline, they close Raw. Roman knows what we want. We all know why he's here. He's going to switch things up. Then, the wise man explains the Bloodline success. Single longest reigning tag team champions in the history of SmackDown, that being the Usos. The largest box office receipts of SummerSlam, that being Roman Reigns. The largest box office was Roman Reigns. The main event was Roman Reigns. The first time WWE made $1 billion in revenue, that being Roman Reigns. Then after that, he talks about the largest box office attraction in the Royal Rumble, Roman Reigns. The largest box office attraction at WrestleMania, Roman Reigns. And the undisputed WWE Universal Heavyweight Champion of the world, Roman Reigns. Then Roman Reigns grabs the mic. He calls him the last needle mover, and he is operating on God mode. Your tribal chief is more than that. He is a man of his word. He called his shot when he delivered, and he saw that he was going to smash Brock, and whatever he did, he smashed him. That's the past now. He is the progressive tribal chief, and on SmackDown they will let us know where their next step is. And then, of course, they asked him to acknowledge him, and the segment ends. Overall thoughts on this segment, I enjoyed it for what it was. My only gripe was the fact that, this segment it was basically a catalyst on what you were going to see on Friday. So we basically waited 3 hours of Raw just to get this kind of, it was not a bad promo, but again, your expectations were high and you really got like this amount. But overall, it was a pretty good segment. What are my thoughts on the Raw after WrestleMania? Overall, I thought that this was a pretty lackluster episode of Raw, especially that being the Raw after WrestleMania, in my opinion. The Raw after WrestleMania should be really big, and really the only big thing that happened was Cody Rhodes' fantastic opening segment on Raw. Everything else on the show felt like a normal episode of Raw, and that's that. But yeah, that was my Monday Night Raw review from April 4th, 2022. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the Broken Havoc podcast, right here on YouTube. And as always, this is Broken Havoc from the Broken Havoc podcast. signing out.